What would you do if the unthinkable happened? How could you go on with life if your child died? How would you feel? How could you possibly deal with the pain, the loss, the devastation? Would you know where to go for help? Could you possibly find hope in the face of such grief?
Welcome to the Grief Relief Show with mother-daughter team doctors Gloria and Heidi Horsley, brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation, helping people find hope after loss. Now, here's Dr. Gloria and Dr. Heidi.
Welcome to the Grief Relief Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my co-host and daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley. Well, hello, Heidi.
Hi, Mom. We have a really exciting show today, a really great show. We are going to talk with the founders of Project Grace. And what Project Grace is it is a place where bereaved people go and they take them all over the world on service projects, and they kind of heal and talk about their losses and start to transform their lives.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I know we've met the two, Carol Mahoney and Catherine Bowens. I wanted to say both their names. Stern, right. We've met both of them, and they've founded this Project Grace, and we're going to be talking to them today. And we've got a wonderful video that we're going to be showing, and we have a great audience. And we hope you'll get a lot of ideas, not only about service, but about what you can do if you've had grief and loss. And we've got a couple of bereaved parents who have been on the show who are going to talk about their journey, right, Heidi?
Yes, and they have really incredible and compelling stories. We are going to talk with Michelle Miller and Nancy Ross, and like you said, they're both bereaved parents, and they both went on Project Grace. In fact, Michelle has gone 4 times.
Right. Yeah, and Michelle's also a therapist, so that's always dear to our heart, the marriage and family therapy. And
well, the interesting thing about Michelle's story is that she's gone twice in order to deal with her own losses. So she's gone twice in order to talk about her daughter that died, etc. And then she went twice as a therapist to help other people.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of you're going into a field where, because of the loss.
Yeah, I mean, I think that our losses definitely change the trajectory of our own career path. I mean, it did with me. I always say, I didn't choose this profession chose me, and that was because Scott died.
Well, let's get started and talk to our guests today, and we're
Okay.
happy to have them both on.
Very
Hello,
good.
ladies.
Hello. Hi,
It's great to have
welcome.
you on the show today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, Michelle, let's talk with you first, and then we'll talk to Nancy. Tell us a little bit about your experience and your child. And I noticed you've got buttons on.
I love
Yes,
that.
they're buttons.
Buttons of your child and your partner, right?
Yes,
Great.
I've had 2 significant losses that I've honored on Project Grace trips.
Okay.
And the first significant loss was my daughter, who died in September 3rd on 2001, my daughter Carolyn. And she died at Point Reyes National Seashore in California, a sneaker wave.
Wow,
Took
just
her
a giant wave took her.
Yeah,
took
she
her
was there with her father and my oldest son.
Wow.
And my son got out, but my daughter didn't.
Every parent's nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to the beach with your child, and when they're little, you worry, and you think, well, they're probably okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true.
Wow.
So Nancy, why don't you tell us about your loss, and then we'll talk about the Project Grace and what it did for you too.
Sure. My son Patrick died 5 years ago. He had a very rare cancer, and he was sick for 16 months, and then he was gone. And that time he was sick was a real journey for us together.
No, he was 21.
He
is that
had
right?
just turned 22 when he died.
And your daughter was
8.
8. Yeah. So 2 different things. It's interesting,
Yeah.
Heidi. So we have 2 different,
Well,
different age loss.
Absolutely, and it's so heartbreaking to hear that kids in the prime of their lives can suddenly be swept away by a wave, or can get cancer at 21 years old. I mean, healthy 21-year-old boy. So
Absolutely. So tell us how you got involved with Project Grace, and I'd like to know what it did for you too, because I'd like our audience to get a little flavor of what's going on here. Do you want to start?
Sure. Project Grace came from the movie Motherland, which was a film about taking bereaved mothers to Africa to do a service project, working with HIV positive children who had lost their parents. And then I met Catherine Bowen Stern through Center for Attitude Healing in Sausalito, and
And you went off?
yeah, I went on a trip.
journey.
Yeah.
And where did you go?
I've been on 4 trips. We've gone to Mexico and I've been to Greece. And we worked in, to honor my daughter Carolyn, we worked in an orphanage in Mexico, and
Wow.
it was very healing. I think there's, as many people find, there's healing in helping others.
Right. And Nancy, how about you? What are your trips?
I went on the first Project Grace trip ever.
Wow.
And we went
That's
to
amazing.
Mexico. My son had only been dead for 4 or 5 months, and I didn't know
Oh
what
my
to do with
goodness!
myself.
Wow.
And I got an email from my sister-in-law that's, was that this Project Grace was starting up. And she said, I've put money aside for something like this if you're interested. And I was like, yes, I want to go. I want to do something. And so I made great friends there and got to bring my
Wow.
grief with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. 4 months. That's pretty amazing, huh?
It is. And what about this transforms your grief? It feels like there was some kind of movement in in a positive direction.
Yeah, I think it's a sense of community. We get to talk about our children, and as we've all discovered on the trips, even though we never knew each other's children, we talk about them and they become a part of our experience, and we feel like we know the children, and we also get to talk about our children, and
I know we were talking a little bit before the show about how meeting mothers from other countries and finding them this commonality. There's a common thing. You kind of know each other in a way.
It's
through this
true. Your
experience.
hearts know each other.
Yeah, I
mean,
like
so
that.
when we're there
Well
and people
put.
say, well, who are you and what are you from and what do you do? And we say, well, we're here on this kind of trip. You will invariably run into other bereaved parents or people who've lost someone else that was very close to them. And there's this immediate connection because your hearts know each other.
Right.
And then there's a relief of, I can tell you, you're going to be able to hear me.
Yeah.
And that's what we bring to each other. That's what people give to us when we're in these places. They call them a service trip, but really you get more than anything you ever bring.
I love
Just
that.
in the sharing and the being able to just be with it.
Yeah, a service trip is,
Really powerful.
Yeah.
Really, really powerful, because I feel like when we've had a loss, we feel like something's been done to us, we feel very disempowered, we feel victimized, and to turn that grief outward towards service is so healing. Really, really healing.
yeah, it gives purpose and meaning again in life.
Yeah.
So what's the plan for the next trip?
They have trips planned this year to Nicaragua and to Greece and Turkey, and next year to Tanzania.
Wow.
So
Were you involved in the building? Are you involved in the video we're going to show, either of you, of the building of the school?
I'm not.
no, I'm not in the video, although I've been on a trip to Nicaragua where we did work on building a school
Oh, talk about
similar
that.
to what's there. It's just so much fun. That's the main thing I would say about Project Grace. You get to be the person who's grieving and still go and have so much fun. We join a community and they take us in. So you're one of them, and we work together with the community. I mean, these people, they can dig a ditch and lay concrete, on bricks just as well as we can. They're happy that someone cared enough to come do it with them, and we're happy that they've invited us to be part of their community.
And you know what else I really like about this, Nancy, is you've lost children, and you are going in and helping children.
Yeah.
You're building schools for children, you're going to orphanages and taking care of children that don't have parents, and you're giving back to children. It's amazing.
It feels good, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of physical exertion, and that's another good thing. I mean, not every trip is, different people like different things, but to go do something with yourself, be somewhere different, get out of your comfort zone, use your body in a way that probably isn't your usual job, talk to people you don't know, try to communicate with people if you have bad Spanish or no Spanish, it's all hands.
Yeah, yeah, I love it.
I like that.
It's
now
fun.
I'm thinking, wow, maybe I can't go on a Project Grace, but I'm starting to get some thought from you. I could maybe do something out of my comfort zone as a bereaved parent, maybe in my own community or such. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. That's one of the things I did at 3 years after my daughter passed on. I became a peer counselor in my community to help other bereaved parents.
So stepping out of your comfort. Well,
Yeah.
Heidi, let's take some questions from our audience.
Okay.
Anybody have a question for these ladies?
And your name?
My name's Anka, and I was wondering if people typically travel alone or with friends or family when they attend Project Grace.
Yeah, they can, either way. They can, oftentimes people will come on their own. and it can be a break for the family, for people to get out on their own, gives the family a break, and they can experience not be taking care of each other.
Yeah. And I have been, the first time I went by myself on a trip that was for mothers, and being with other mothers was great. But the next time I went on a family trip, and my daughter went with me, and she's just out of college, and we went to Nicaragua together. And so we shared our story together, and there were people there who were grieving the loss of a spouse, grieving the loss of parents. And so it was really good to be with different kinds of clumps of people. So some of us were alone, and some of us were with another family member or a friend.
Yeah.
I love that sibling piece, Heidi, don't you?
Yes, and that you guys shared your stories together, and I bet heard things from each other that you didn't know. I'm constantly hearing things from my mom that I never knew, because we're telling our stories in different ways, and we're telling other parts of it.
Sure. No, my daughter is not as verbose as I am, and so she tends to keep things closer to the heart. So she'll say to me, "Mom, you are the rock star of grief." Thanks, honey. But on the trip, once everyone started really sharing, she said things that she might have had a hard time just saying to me when we were sitting alone in a room. And that was really healing for her, and it was wonderful for us to listen to each other in that context.
Wow, amazing.
That's great. Okay, anybody else? Okay, and your name?
I'm Marcy Kirk Stevens. And the question I have is, how do you fund your projects? How do they find them? Where do they go? I know you want to do projects maybe with kids, but how do you find them all over the world?
Well, Carol and Catherine are the ones who oversee the program. They're the ones who set it up. And the nice thing is we get to just go and just be. We don't have to worry about anything. We're taking care of all the meals. Everything is included. The traveling. Well, sometimes we have to work out our travel plans to get there, but once we're there, we're in good hands. And that's how they find the trips. I mean, they decide where to go.
So they can tell you more about where they've glommed in, but I know, for instance, in trying to go to Africa last year, they were looking at a lot of different projects and organizations and trying to say what would feel right for the Project Grace kind of people, for people who are grieving, and what can we do that's good service, what can we do that's safe, what can we do that we can get to, and people are going to have a good time doing good work.
Well, Marcy, I happen to know her, and one of the things I'm interested in right now is you do an orphanage in Africa. Aren't you involved with that?
Wow.
We're very involved. Actually, we're doing a project where we reunite orphans back into their homes, but we're very involved with the social welfare department in Ghana. So I'm interested in...
We'll have to have the Project Grace people talking to you.
That's right. You need to talk to Catherine Carroll.
Thank you. Heidi, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, thanks, Marcy, regarding siblings is one of the things that we find with Compassionate Friends is we can't always, people are saying, how do I get my siblings to go? How do I get my child to go with me? And I'm thinking, wow, these are kind of major trips, aren't they, Heidi? You'd probably be able to get your child to go on this one. How was your daughter when you asked her?
Sure. I mean, some of it is the appeal of the trip. So again, my daughter's more reticent to talk about what's going on inside of her, but we had scholarships to go to Nicaragua, and I said, Kelsey, we could go to Nicaragua, and she and I haven't traveled abroad together. It's
and didn't you say that some of your family members came up with money or friends?
Right. On my first trip, my sister-in-law sponsored me to go.
How neat.
So, and I had a friend on that trip whom I met on that trip. Her church had sponsored her to go. So, you don't have to just be someone who's got lots of change in your pocket to go travel all the time. There's ways to work it out.
If I'm out there, I might be able to figure out, and I'm listening to you, figure out a way. And also, there are other people besides bereaved parents there, too.
Yes.
Well, now we're going to show a video of the Project Grace Project, and we want to thank you guys for being on the show today and for all the stuff you're doing with Project Grace. And
thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Give them a hand.
Nicaragua is still scattered with little rural communities, 40, 50 homes. Very often there's no school. It could happen in a barn. I've seen it on porches and even under trees. The goal of Seeds of Learning as it developed was to create a real school that would serve these small communities.
And if my heart knew what to do or how to do it, the thought of you, I would set free.
I'm here to honor my dad and my brother who both died of cancers.
I'm doing this in honor of my mother, Mildred Martin, who passed away January of this year.
My son, Christopher.
I lost my daughter 8 years ago.
It always catches me in the heart sometimes how much I miss him. He was a great gift. 17 years. I mean, how do you measure a life?
There are a lot of grief organizations and support groups, but there's nothing in which people in grief can travel together and find an outlet, a positive focus for their grief.
This is our 8th trip. We've been to Nicaragua now twice, Mexico 3 or 4 times.
Un pedazo de cielo, mi Nicaragua se formó.
Wow, Heidi, that touches your heart, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That's very, very powerful.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to have Catherine and Carol here. So let's bring them in.
Okay.
Hi. Hello. How are you? Have a seat. Well, great to have you two on, and what great ladies you are, and what a fabulous program. Let me just start with, I like to give a little honor to Project Grace because of to Grace.
Indeed.
Would you like to do that, Carol?
Well, Project Grace is named after a young girl, a 15-year-old girl who died from suicide, and she was the dear friend of my son, Brendan. They were high school buddies.
Wow. I can just kind of feel her energy here right now.
I was thinking about that too before we started. Yeah.
Wow, that gives me chills. I actually didn't know Project Grace was named in honor and as a tribute to somebody that had died. I didn't know there was a Grace. So that's amazing. That's really powerful. That's incredible.
We also love the meaning of the word because we feel like on a trip, we're not going to cure you. You might not, be healed, but at least maybe we can offer a little bit of grace. So that's why we thought the name was so appropriate.
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah. I was interested in the clip we just saw because you do more than take bereaved mothers on trips. You do different family members, right?
Right. We started with moms, and we quickly wanted to offer something to fathers too. And we haven't had quite as many fathers sign up, but one of the reasons we wanted to do Nicaragua is because it was a construction project, and we thought the men could just get out there and hammer and sweat and talk. But we've also had spouses, bereaved spouses, join us, people honoring their parents, partners. So we're open. We've had a grandmother come on a few of our trips. Grandmothers offer a very interesting perspective because they've not only lost a grandchild, but they've watched their child suffer the loss.
Right. And I'm interested in what they said about men. We find they're instrumental, right? Heidi is what we call them.
I was going to say that. I think the more you can get the word out about Project Grace to guys, the better, because guys are doers and they want to build and fix and do. And they grieve shoulder to shoulder oftentimes.
Right.
So they're more willing to talk if they're not staring directly at each other.
Right.
This is perfect for them, I would think.
But I love the fact that you take people out of their setting, as the ladies were saying, and give them a chance to risk and do something different. And maybe, I love the thought of, I think if men are together quietly, they can talk, and they do want to talk. And it's very interesting. One of the things for me, I like the idea of a foreign country too, because if you go to the same place, I don't know folks out there, if you've had a loss, I find that you're yearning and searching, particularly in those first couple of years. You're thinking about your loved one at the places you've always been, and you really kind of would get a break, from this and kind of a little peace, and then when you're feeling low, you've got people to talk to too. It's a wonderful idea and wonderful thought. Well, tell us about your trips coming up.
Well, you can talk about it.
Okay, well, we've got in May this year, we're taking a group to Greece and Turkey, and we went to Greece a couple of years ago, and we were sailing the Turkish coast and Greek islands, so it's a wonderful trip. There's not as much service involved. We call it more of an exploration of the Greek grieving rituals. So we'll be visiting different islands and participating in the Greeks have so many rituals for everything, so that's interesting. And then in June, we're going to be taking a family trip, an open trip to anyone, back to Nicaragua. With Seeds of Learning is the organization we partner with that builds schools in rural areas in Nicaragua.
And that's Todd's kind
That's
of his-
Todd's.
Yes.
Yeah, and he lives in Marin, and his
He lives in
son,
Sonoma, and he founded Seeds of Learning.
Over 20 years ago. And he lost his son, Scott, I think about 13 years ago.
Okay. And so he's continued on with this project and kind of partnered with you in doing it. What a
Exactly.
great idea.
Yeah.
What a wonderful idea. How would I find out about your organization if I'm out there, you know, when you're taking your trips and you're on the internet, right?
Yeah, of course. We have a website. We have a website, and also we are linked with the Motherland, motherlandthefilm.org. There's a Project Grace in the menu bar. And yeah, it's project-grace.org.
Isn't it dash? We're also on Facebook, we're on YouTube. You can find us if you search for us.
And the other thing I want to say for anyone out there that's thinking of doing this, Motherland is such a powerful film, and I'm friends with Jennifer Steinman, the documentary filmmaker. Go watch it if you're even, you know, if you want to know more about what goes on, because I found that after I watched it, I wanted to go.
Well, Heidi, let's take some questions from the audience. This is just so interesting. I'm sure there'll be some people there who'll have some questions.
Your name?
My name is Tina, and I wanted to find out how much does it cost to go on the trips, and what are the ways to pay for it?
That's a good question.
Opportunities?
Most of the trips, I would say, are between $1,500 and $3,000, depending on where we're going. And they're all, they include everything. Sometimes the airfare is not included, but they include all the meals, all the lodging, all the transportation, because we want people to get on the trip and then relax. We don't want them to have to pull their wallet out once. We want them to just know it's all taken care of. We do have a scholarship fund, so if there's a need, we can provide scholarship aid. And also, a lot of people raise money within their communities. They'll write a letter to their community saying, I'm going to Nicaragua to work on a school project, will you sponsor me? And the friends and community members are so happy to have a way to help their friends. So, like Nancy mentioned earlier, the woman on our first trip, her Sunday school class raised the money to send her. And so we were getting checks for $1, you know.
That's wonderful.
That is so sweet. I was noticing your badges and can you talk a little bit about your badges and what you do? Is that part of something that you do on the program?
Right. Each participant gets a day to tell their story, tell the story about their child, and you know, just conjure up images of their child. And by wearing badges of this child or this loved one, we're constantly reminded that that's why we're there, why we're all there together. And it's been a powerful thing. I think each day is augmented by this person. You know, we just feel so much empowered by this person in our lives.
I love it. They have a day. You have a day for each person there for their child.
And it's so fun. I mean, they'll tell their story the evening before, and then that morning we all wake up and we put on our buttons, and we'll do whatever they wanted. On our very first trip, a woman's son had been 3 years old, and he loved pizza and Sunny Delight, so we went and got pizza for the kids at the orphanage, and we had a pizza and Sunny Delight party.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that you keep pairing the word fun with these trips, because like you said, yes, it is a way to grieve and mourn and get your feelings out, but there's also a lot of laughter and fun, and I think that's part of the healing also.
Yeah. It's fun. There's a great freedom. People don't feel like they have to pretend to be okay. They don't feel like they've got to, you know, be anything for anybody. They're away from home, away from their family. Usually it's a group of strangers, and so there's also a great fearlessness. And so people do feel free, I think. We laugh a lot on our trips.
Yeah. Did we have any other questions? What?
Hello, my name's Rebecca Vera. Do people tend to go on multiple trips? And also, how many people go on the trips typically?
Well, indeed, we have had repeat participants. We try to keep the group small, just because we want everybody to feel like they got a day. And if it's 14 people, that's a 2-week trip. That's a little unwieldy. Our groups have never been more than say 15, and that's when it was that big. It was we had 4 or 5 mother-daughter combinations, and that was a powerful trip. That was the one that Nancy went on with her daughter Kelsey. And just to answer your question about multiple times, Nancy's been on a few trips, and what's been interesting is to see her 4 months out of, losing Pat, and then like 4 years after losing Patrick, and what she's
I think we're going to have to, I hate to interrupt you on that, but I want to have time, Heidi, to thank you guys so much for being on the show, and to thank you for all the things that you're doing for the world and for bereaved parents, and all the wonderful things that you're doing to empower people. What do you think, Heidi?
Yes, thank you so much for creating this space for people to grieve and to talk about what's gone on and to transform their grief. And there's no better way to do it than service and giving back.
Yeah, and I want to say to the audience out there, this is a great program, and you guys would love to have them, right?
Oh, indeed.
Absolutely. Yes, we're always looking for more participants.
All right, and the idea that you can raise things in your community, I really like, because that makes everybody, especially with Facebook and the internet and all that, everybody can be on the trip with you.
Oh, indeed.
So, thank you so much again for being on the show today.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
This has been the Grief Relief Show, hosted by mother-daughter team Doctors Gloria and Heidi Horsley. This show has been brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation, helping people find hope after loss. Be sure to visit opentohope.com, where you can listen to radio programs, watch Open to Hope TV, read articles, and view books. You can also join Dr. Gloria and Dr. Heidi on Twitter and Facebook, and put your events on their international calendar. Thanks for watching, and remember, others have been there and made it, and you can too.